Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. We start on part 3 of our dua. Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Ya ayyuhar rasulu balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbika wa illam taf'al fama ballagta risalatahu wallahu ya'simuka minan nas. This ayat is from Surah 5, Surah Al-Ma'idah, and it is ayat number 67, and it means, O Messenger, convey that which has been revealed unto you from your Lord. If you did not do so, then you did not convey his message, and Allah will protect you from humankind. This ayat, many people feel, has something missing in it, because although it says convey that which has been revealed unto you from your Lord, it doesn't tell you what was to be conveyed. And since this ayat was revealed at the time of the final pilgrimage of the Holy Prophet, in which he had performed the final Hajj, and he was returning to Medina, and on the journey back he received this revelation, which is in a very emphatic way that he had to convey the message. If people say that the Prophet was supposed to convey the Tanzil, the revelation of the Quran, he had already been doing that for 22 years already, and this was just 3 months before he was to leave this world physically. So what is this ayat about? And the answer to this is to be found in the book of a Sunni commentator of the Quran. The name of the book is Tafsir Ad-Durri Mansur, and it is by this commentator, this Sunni commentator. His name is Jalaluddin Suyuti, and this book has been published in Egypt, and in volume 3 on page 398 it is said that Ibn Mardawayh has narrated from Ibn Mas'ud that this verse used to be recited during the lifetime of the Prophet as follows: Ya ayyuhar rasulu balligh ma unzila ilayka min rabbika anna aliyan mawlal mu'minina wa illam taf'al fama ballagta risalatahu wallahu ya'simuka minan nas. So, according to a Sunni writer, it seems that a whole sentence is missing from this ayat. And when this ayat is read in its complete form, then it makes more meaning. For instance, it means, O Messenger, convey the command that has been revealed to you about Ali, that he is the master, the Mawla of the Mu'mineen. If you did not do so, then you did not convey his message, and Allah will protect you from humankind. According to the Shia interpretation, Ghadir Khum is a key event in our history, and it was at Ghadir Khum that the Prophet had after receiving this ayat 567, he had stopped the whole caravan, waited for people who were still behind, and had called back the people who had gone ahead, and to thousands of them in the heat of the desert, he had announced that he whose master I am, Ali is his master. And this he was doing because he was following the command of God that he should do so. Because at Ghadir Khum, the Prophet also made the statement that he was leaving too heavy that is significant things behind him. That is the book of God, the Holy Quran, and his progeny, because his progeny, the Imams, would give the inner meaning of the Quran, who would give the ta'wil of the tanzil of the Quran, and in that way keep Islam a dynamic faith which would be practiced according to the time. From here we go on to the next section, which is 4 statements. La ilaha illallahul hayyul qayyum, which means there is no God except Allah, who is ever living and everlasting by himself. In this statement, there is the supreme name of God, Al-Hayyul Qayyum, and Al-Hayyul Qayyum is also to be found in the famous Ayatul Kursi, which is in Surah 2, Ayat 255, and all Muslims believe that the Ayatul Kursi is the greatest ayat of all the ayats of the Holy Quran. And the Ayatul Kursi's first statement is La ilaha illallahul hayyul qayyum. And Al-Hayyul Qayyum are therefore the supreme name of God, and it means ever living and everlasting. And we all also link here with the fact that in many of our rites and ceremonies we use Hayyu and Qayyum quite a lot. For instance, we say Hayyu Zinda when we enter the Jamaat Khana, and those who are already in the Jamaat Khana, they reply Qayyum Paya. We also use Hayyu Zinda when we receive juro. We also use the tasbih of Ya Hayyu Ya Qayyum in certain majlises. Therefore, this supreme name of God is well known to us. The sentence after that is La ilaha illallahul malikul haqqul mubin. There is no God except Allah, who is the King, the truth, the manifest. La ilaha illallahul malikul haqqul yaqeen. There is no God except Allah, who is the King, the truth, the certain. La ilaha illallahu maliku yawmiddin. There is no God except Allah, who is the master of the day of judgment. In this last sentence, please note that it is La ilaha illallahu maliku yawmiddin, not like in the Suratul Fatiha, where because the grammatical construction is different, it is Maliki Yawmiddin. But in the third part, it is Maliku Yawmiddin. Then comes La Fata illa Aliyun La Saifa illa Zulfakar, which means there is no ideal man except Ali, and there is no ideal sword except Zulfakar. The third part of our dua has 2 references to our history. The beginning ayat is a reference to Gadir Khum, and this particular statement, which is actually a Hadith Qudsi. A Hadith Qudsi is a divine tradition which was relayed to the Holy Prophet at a certain point in history. It is believed that this was revealed to the Holy Prophet at the time of the Battle of Uhud, which was the second great battle in the history of Islam. It is said that the Muslim army was a certain section of the Muslim army, that is the archers, were placed by the Holy Prophet strategically on a hilltop, and there were commanded not to leave their position unless the Holy Prophet himself asked them or commanded them to do so. During the battle, the Muslims were winning and the enemies were fleeing, and when the archers on the hilltop saw that the enemy was in flight, they decided not to wait for the Prophet's command, and they decided to come down so that they could also participate in getting all the booty of the war. This was their disobedience, and it had very grave consequences. They say that Khalid bin Walid, who had not yet converted to Islam and was still a very dreadful enemy of Islam, he gathered his soldiers and he relaunched an attack against the Muslims. And in this, because the archers had left their strategic position, the Muslims were at a disadvantage. Many people fled, many Muslims fled, and Hazrat Ali found himself having to defend the Holy Prophet single-handed. And they say that in this battle, the Holy Prophet actually lost a tooth. But Hazrat Ali, who was defending the Holy Prophet single-handedly, received so many cuts on his body that when the Muslim ladies who were the nurses on the battlefield were asked to bandage Hazrat Ali, they turned to the Holy Prophet and said, "He has so many cuts, we don't know where to start." So this shows the bravery of Hazrat Ali. He was the greatest champion of Islam and the greatest soldier of Islam. And the Holy Prophet then reported that the angels in heaven were reciting La Fatah illa Aliyun la Sayfa illa Zulfaka. There is no ideal or perfect man like Ali, and there is no sword like Zulfikar. So it is an historical incident, but what relevance does it have for us today in the context in which we live, where we no longer use swords except in museums or in dramas? The answer to this is that Zulfikar used to have a double blade, and this double blade symbolized knowledge, ilm, and action, amal. Ilm and amal, or amal, knowledge and action. And today our imams, Maulana Sultan Muhammad Shah alayhi salam, had actually made a statement during his period that today we no longer use the sword of iron. Today we use the sword of knowledge. And we can all see that our 49th imam is spreading knowledge through all his activities in the world. You take any aspect of Imam Zaman's work through the Aga Khan Development Network, and we see that it's not that he's spreading knowledge by building schools only, but he's spreading knowledge by building universities, hospitals, by having the Aga Khan Award for Architecture, the historic cities. In any piece of work that the Imam does, it is evident for anybody to see that the Imam is motivating people all over the world to acquire knowledge. Finally, the last paragraph of the third part of the dua reads, Tawassalu indal masaibi bimawla kumul hadiril mawjudi shakarimil Husaini Allahumma laka sujudi wa ta'ati, which means seek the mediation and closeness of your Lord, Shah Karim al-Husaini, during calamities. O Allah, my prostration and obedience is for you. The word tawassalu is related to the word wasila, and wasila means intermediary or means. And this is a direct reference to Surah 5 also, because in the third part, the beginning ayat is from Surah Ma'idah, and the ayat which I am quoting about wasila is also from Surah Ma'idah, and it is Surah 5, Ayah 35. O you who believe, fear God and seek the means, wasila, to Him, and struggle in His way. Haply you will prosper. This word wasila means intermediary, or to seek a means, to go through the Imam and the Prophet. And this is a very important Quranic notion. This is a concept which is underlying the Ismaili interpretation of Islam, that God has always appointed on amongst human beings a Khalifa, a vicegerent, who is the Prophet and the Imam, as a means to Him, so that the people of the planet can go through the Prophets and the Imams to Allah. And you can see this in many, many ayats of the Holy Quran. Take ayat, Surah number 4, ayat 64, which says, we sent no messenger except that he should be obeyed by Allah's permission. In other words, when we obey the messenger, only then do we obey Allah. And if when they had wronged themselves, they had but come to you, the Prophet, and asked forgiveness of Allah, and the messenger had asked forgiveness for them, they would have found Allah forgiving, merciful. So when we are disobedient, we are, according to this ayat, we have to go to the Prophet or to his successors, the Imam of the time, and ask for forgiveness. And if they ask for forgiveness for us, then Allah is forgiving, merciful. Similarly, in Surah 9, there is an ayat 103 which reads, take sadaqah from their wealth. And this is addressed to the Holy Prophet, and it is commanding the Holy Prophet to take sadaqah from the wealth of the people, from the wealth of the followers, the murids, the mu'mins, so that they may thereby be purified and grow, and pray for them. For your prayers will be a source of comfort and peace for them. Allah is hearing, knowing. So in this ayah too, you see that people, human beings, do not give sadaqah or even zakat directly to Allah, but it is done through the Imams and the Prophet. And it is the Imams and the Prophet who pray for the believers who give sadaqah from their wealth or who give zakat from their wealth. And these prayers are a source of peace and happiness for the believers. One more thing I want to point out in this is that this sentence, tawassalu indal masaibi bi mawla kumul hadiril. In the older printed versions of our dua, there has been a printing error, and it has come as Mawla Kumil Hadiril. But in fact, it is Mawla Kumul Hadiril Mawjud Shah Karim al Husseini Hazar Imam. Ya Ali Madad.